when the institutions fail, the institutions we count on, it's devastating.
Yes.
And what a lot of people kind of don't understand in the Western world is we are moving towards similar situation, but much slower. What happened in Lebanon was an accelerated example of what's happening at a global level. If we're looking at the state of let's say, global currencies, global financial systems which are dependent on currencies, or at least what we understand to be this, value, trade of value, and so on and so forth. And when you see it happen several times in different countries, as you do when you're connected with the third world, you see the Turkish lira go down, you see the Egyptian pound, you see, a bit of strife and a bit of thing, and it just, these institutions we count on collapse. And so we see it here in the Western world happening, but at such a slow pace. It's like when you watch something grow and it's in front of you, you don't see it growing. But if you step back and you look in and you go, oh, wow, it's grown a lot. That thing where, with the kids, you see them every day, and then someone who hasn't seen them for a year will come and see your kids and go, oh, wow.
Yep.
But you don't notice it because you live it day by day. That's happening today in our Western world. And we only notice it when we take a bigger picture and we look at, everyone's complaining about everything's getting more expensive. But they don't understand that things aren't necessarily getting more expensive. It's that the value of the currency you're paying for those things is depreciating in value.
Right.
So it's very different, and people just can't, everyone can wrap their head around it when they understand what's going on, but people don't understand because you need some kind of financial or economic background, and you need to look into the past to understand. And the very simple thing is just zoom back out. Zoom back to the time of when your parents were buying a home. They were buying homes for 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. There wasn't euros at the time, but let's stick with dollars. $15,000, $20,000 would get you a home. And we're talking not so long ago, 50 years ago, 60 years ago. Yeah. But people today, 50, 60 years, if they're looking at the 60s or the 50s or something, they don't look that far back. They know that today a house is, let's say, worth 250,000, and it'll be worth more in 10 years, maybe 350,000. Yeah. The house itself is still the house. It's not worth more. Of course, depending on where you are, if it's in a city, is maybe higher demand or something. But if the demand and other things stay equal, the house still goes up in value in most cases. In suburbia, where there's not necessarily higher demand, you're still buying that house, which 30 years ago was half the value. Right. Nothing really changed. The only thing that changes, your currency is worth half as much as it was 30 years ago. Right. And especially with what happened in COVID, at the time of COVID, obviously, they started printing money because of the fact that they closed down a lot of businesses, governments, countries, everything. And in order to reboost the economy, governments typically central banks typically create more capital. In this case, let's say dollars or European Central Bank, euros and stuff like that. When you create more of something, you dilute it.
Right.
And that's the main thing. And it's such a simple economic concept. It's a simple concept across anything. You dilute anything, it becomes weaker. 100%. And that's really where we are now. And the dilution process was stable for a few hundred years. If you look at where the dollar was in the 1700s and the creation of it and so on, and you look at how many dollars were in circulation, of course, populations have increased, overall GDP and everything has increased. So the rate of a currency and the amount of currency that needs to be, let's say, in circulation has to increase with GDP and so on and so forth. The dilution and the inflation really comes when the currency is printed at a rate that outstrips GDP and production and growth of, just human growth, capital growth, and all of that stuff. So it did move pretty much in line for quite a long time, the history of the creation of currencies, and also because they were backed by a physical asset of gold. And then we got to a stage where everything just went nuts, economically speaking. And they
unpegged off the gold value, the gold standard?
The gold. So it started as sort of a temporary measure in the early 1900s, maybe 1940s or something. And then in 1973 or 4, I think it was Nixon, that then officially unpegged the gold standard. And it was completely abolished. And at that point, you literally have a piece of paper or a number, a digit on the screen that has value because you believe it has value. You can't, you can buy goods with it because everyone is, you believe in the strength of the dollar, which is the strength of the issuing government. So of course, as long as the United States is strong and the government is strong, which they are, then of course you can trust in the value of that currency. But the fact that the currency is now just being printed whenever they want to without any sort of real economic control measures. They say there are lots, quantitative easing and quantitative tightening and all of that stuff, issuing of bonds and treasuries and all that. There's a lot of complicated things that make it look like this is the right thing to do. But the governments know it's out of control. The head of Federal Reserve knows it's out of control. I mean, you can go back to several of the heads of the Federal Reserve from Greenspan and even before, and you can look back at many, many different documentaries of presidents that have all said, we are printing these currencies into nothing.
Yeah.
And it's, like I said, we saw the accelerated version in a country like Lebanon, where the Lebanese lira went from $1 was equivalent to 1,500 Lebanese lira, which already sounds crazy, right?
Yes.
But we went from $1 to 1,500 Lebanese pounds to $1 now being close to 100,000 Lebanese pounds.
Thank you for watching that short. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to watch the full episode, it's available over here. Remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell icon to get notified when we upload new content, and follow us on Spotify. It helps the algorithm.